With insufficient gunpowder, it will be decided by cold steel.
When Bartolome faced down the rebels, he did so in hand-to-hand fighting. We're told there were no arquebuses, there were no crossbows. It was swordsman against swordsman. The Spanish sword, very similar to the medieval sword that it came from. It's a broad blade with two edges and a point. It's balanced at the end by a pommel, which can be used to bludgeon. And they used a large round shield called a target.
The Loyalists succeed in removing many mutineers from the field. Eventually, the only men still fighting are Bartolome and Francisco de Porras.
Now, when you're using the sword and shield in a duel, there's a number of ways it can be used. If you go for my face, for instance, Ludwig, I can deflect and I'm quickly in for a slice there. But he's also using his agility to step out of the way. That would be hampered in the press of men in a battle, but in a duel, you really want to use your agility. If you come down to my head, I can get round, I can get behind you, take your hamstring out, try a cut down at this neck here. I can come in there, I can take you off guard with a pommel in the face, and I can use a knee to get you to the ground. They use body checks, kicks, anything, and that's what happens.
Bartolome proves to be the stronger of the two and overwhelms Porras. But in this crucial moment, Bartolome decides to spare him. With their leader beaten, the mutiny is finally over. Just over a month later, rescue finally comes. A caravel sent by Mendez reaches Jamaica. Incredibly, after all their ordeals, 110 of the original 140 crew members have survived. Now, at last, they are going to Hispaniola. But because of strong winds, they will be forced to stop on the way. A journey which took Diego Mendez just 4 days in a canoe will take Columbus and his battered sailors a total of 45 days in a caravel. Unable to face a further lengthy voyage back to Spain, many of the sailors choose to remain forever on Hispaniola. Over 2 years after he first set out, Columbus and his son Fernando find a caravel to take them back from Hispaniola to Spain. Completely humiliated, Columbus will have to pay for their passage home. It is an ignominious end to his career as an explorer.
By that time, Columbus had essentially failed in every effort that he had set out to do. He had not found a voyage to Asia. He had not been able to establish a viable set of colonies as he had hoped. He had not found the great harbors teeming with ships, the commerce of Asia. To that extent, I think it's easy to understand the disappointment that Columbus felt at the end of the fourth voyage.
Columbus spent the rest of his life trying to regain his rights to the New World, taken away by the monarchs of Spain. But nothing was restored. For Columbus, the fourth voyage was a disaster. He has failed to save his reputation or his fortune. At the age of 55, not 2 years after he returned from his final lost voyage, Columbus dies a broken man. His last words are a prayer to God. Columbus's heirs persistently pursued the family's lost rights to the New World. This enraged the Spanish sovereigns, who went on to blacken the Columbus name. Columbus's entire reputation went into decline, and the glory of his discoveries was passed on to others. Over time, his name ceased to be associated with the New World. Instead, America was named after Amerigo Vespucci, who wrote in 1505 of his own voyages to the New World. In less than 2 decades, the truth about the westward passage would finally come to light. In 1523, Vasco Núñez de Balboa would lead an overland expedition across Panama to the Pacific. And in 1519, the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan found the true westward passage to the east. Fernando, who started the voyage as a 13-year-old boy, would grow up to be a respected man. He dedicated his life to writing up the lost adventure of the fourth voyage into a biography favoring his father. He became a famed astronomer and died in 1539, leaving one of the greatest libraries of his time. But it wasn't until 300 years after the discovery of the New World that the name of Christopher Columbus began its resurrection.
1792, on the third centennial of the discovery of the New World, it kind of comes out that it was Columbus all along. And so we have this rebirth of the Columbus legend.
Columbus's greatest asset, his single-minded vision, took him thousands of miles across the ocean. But it was also his greatest flaw.
Columbus, to his dying day, believed that the discoveries that he had found in what we now call America were, in fact, somewhere in the Far East.
He was a guy who wanted to be somebody special. And to do that, he had to go to sea. He had to push the limits and do things that nobody else had done.
By surviving his fourth voyage against all the odds, Columbus proved himself to be one of history's most extraordinary and tenacious explorers. A man prepared to risk everything in pursuit of the unknown.